Hey everybody, GL1 here, and today I'm going to introduce you to a toy from 1985 called Legions of Power, and it was made by Bandai in 1985. Uh, Apparently, from what I was looking at, in 1986, Tonka took over the toy line, but this is the 1985 Bandai version, and it's been a long time since I've played with this, and there's a whole bunch of pieces to it. But the first thing that one has to get ready are the motor pieces. So this here houses a motor. These are the electrical connections, the positive and negative, or negative and positive. It does both. It just changes the polarity of the motor, which means it turns the motor one way or turns it the other. Polarity, such as the positive and negative side of a battery. This is the crankshaft. So when you have a battery pack on here, it will turn this, albeit slowly. It's a high torque motor with lots of gears. So this one I've already got working again. And what happens is when a motor has not been used for 15, 20 years, it gets really stiff. Even though there might be oil, grease inside it, the motor often freezes up, or just the gears even don't quite mesh the same. And it takes some little bit of taking things apart and pushing them along to get them working again. So this is the battery pack. Inside are two C-cell batteries. It's made to look like a rocket, or some sort of, fuel container, and that's so that it goes along with the toys. And this here is your on-off. You have a on one way and an on the other way, and this is off is in the middle. And so that's polarity one direction, polarity the other direction, so it turns the motor two different directions. So I'm going to turn it. And all right, so now you see that the crank is moving in that direction. It's a very high torque. It's got a lot of resistance, but it's slow. And then you turn it the other way, and it goes the other direction. And I have two of these, and you can add them together. So you can take this, there's your little plugs that plug into where the battery goes. I'm sorry, where the motor is. And the batteries are in here, right? And you turn it, and if I turn it the wrong way, it'll shut off. Yeah, and I turn it the other way, it's going to go a little faster. Gives it a little bit more torque. There you go, now it's moving. These motors have a lot of resistance in them, but you can hear it's louder and going a little faster. See, there's off, and there's on. Okay, so that's how they work, and it can handle the extra voltage. Each one of these is 3 volts, and so add them together, of course, you get 6. So I have one over here that when I first started working with it, it did not work. And I opened it up. I had to open all of these actually and get the gears moving again. So here's what it looks like inside. So this is the motor, and then you have a lot of gears, a lot of reduction, what that's called, gear reduction. So this spins fast, but then through the machinations of these gears, it takes it down to much slower but much higher torque. Now, I must have repaired this a long time ago, because you see this frayed wire here? Well, that's not the original wire. It was actually a metal tab that would meet up with a tab on the motor. So the positive, this is the positive side of the motor, and or actually where the battery pack, but it really doesn't matter because you just turn it one way and then it's the negative. So all right, so this here was a metal tab that touched up against a metal tab on the motor, and that broke. So I took a piece of wire and did a pretty bad job, as I can see now. I probably did this repair like 25 years ago or something. And, it wasn't working at first because it had what was called a cold solder joint. So what happens is over time, the solder gets brittle, and the heat of the voltage on and off and everything, it speeds up the brittling process, and you lose connection. So, but I think actually I jiggled it and it was working a little bit ago. So let's see if it still is. But I'm going to repair that again because that's messy. But there you go. Okay, so you can see it moving. So you see this is moving really fast. And that's moving a little slower, and then, it keeps turning it so it gets to this really slow speed. You can visualize it, and then you can see the shaft there spinning. All right, so it's pretty neat, huh? To see, something going fast and all these reduction gears to get it down to going slow. So I'm going to resolder that and screw this back on there. And then we will see more of the actual toy once everything's working, because it's really, really a cool toy. So here we go. All right, so what I did is I used this soldering iron. It's a 30-watt soldering iron and this very fine solder, and I just added solder covering over that wire. It's not pretty. I could do a much prettier job by just actually cutting some wire and redoing it, but this is actually it's actually going to hold. So it's got a lot of solder onto that tab, and it is soldered onto the tab on the motor and the tab onto the where the battery pack sends its signal through. So it's going to be okay, and I can demonstrate that that's still working here, and there we go. So probably another 25 years of use. So I'm going to put that back together, and we're going to look at the toy. All right, so I'm back with the Legions of Power, and I built several vehicles. I did work with the motor and soldered it, and worked with the battery packs. And in the end, even when the toys were new, I was not satisfied with the way that the amperage, the power from the battery packs was transmitted to the motors. They never really worked that well. And I came up with a good temporary solution, and I will be developing it into a more permanent solution. But before I get into that, let me show you what these toys are about. So here's a little rocket launcher vehicle that I made, and they came with, well, each set, these are two big sets, came with 6 people. They have little fellows like this, and they have rubber arms and rubber legs and a hard plastic body. Their heads don't turn, but they can move their limbs all around, and they can sit, and they're cute. And I've had these for quite a few years, and I can only not find one, but he might turn up because I've been pretty good about keeping them together. But they were all in a box with some other things, and he might have got hooked up on a box. So all of these pieces come apart, and just like any of these what's called like friction toys, like friction pegged items, like you have to squeeze them together, and the friction of the plastic is what holds things together. You have to be careful that you don't crack the plastic. And these are old, so they're 1985, so they're really old, right? They're like 37 years old, 38 years old. So but none of them cracked. And this is a rocket, and that comes off, and you just kind of turn it a little bit, and then that comes off, and then this also comes off, and this is rubber. This is hard plastic, and this is hollow there. And it's like the second stage of the rocket that it can go off like that. And I guess you could put one of the little people in there if you wanted. So that's how that, and that lifts up and down. You make that to lift up and down. But this also, more excitingly, is motorized. So what I did is I remembered that this can have a tread. So it's motorized treads and then freewheeling in the front. And this is actually, oh, I just realized that it's not freewheeling in the front because I actually have it hooked up into the motor. So, but it is tread driven. So I will show you how that works. Where you get the treads from are a large wheel. So it comes apart, and I made this vehicle. This is sort of like I don't know, like a force field vehicle. Like I was thinking this generated a force field, and this is the wheel that tread would go on. But it also happens to fit along two wheels, becomes a tread, or fits on one big wheel and becomes a big wheel like these in the back. See, there's big wheels in the back. And I just sort of had it like, this creates a force field, and then it can monitor the rocket as well. And, you have maybe something like this that helps create the force field, or it's more of like a communication device. And then, you have your little fella here. And move that back. And then he can, be situated on here. You can take his little arm, stick it on there to help hold him on there. And then he can kind of make sure that, nothing, maybe like if a rock's rolling down the hill, he can shoot the rock and blow it up so it doesn't damage the vehicle. And this long piece here also has like a joint that it can turn. So all of this comes apart. These are all separate pieces. The wheel's a separate piece, and these pieces here, that's a couple separate pieces. And this shaft, this comes apart, see? Like that, and then there's a connecting piece here, and then that just connects on there. And all of these white pieces glow in the dark, so I can show you that later too. I then built like a big ship, like a space-going ship for my little fellows here, the Legions of Power. And then this is, this guy here, he's inside there, he's waving to you, and you can, close the hatch on him. He has to put his arm down, but then you close the hatch, and then he can help defend the ship. And this is a cargo ship, so I have it like when you look at the bottom here, those are the rockets, those are the liftoff rockets, and you have 4 of those. And then here you have your, your fuel tanks, and then this all helps propel it through space. And it's slow. It just has 1 rocket, but it's just a cargo ship, so it doesn't have to go really fast. And here is some of your cargo. So this opens up, and here's an example of some of the pieces that you get. So you have, tires, and then these are connecting pieces. And this is like a fender. So you have these. If you want, you can put on the small fenders instead of having the big fender across there. And these are, the small battery packs. They hold 1 C battery, but again, the C batteries, 1 or 2 or even 3, just really doesn't generate enough voltage to make these motors that come with this work very well. So my solution actually works really well. And then in the front here, I have more cargo. So those open up, and then, a lot more pieces in there. And this I made, it looks sort of like a TIE fighter, and I made it so that you can take that off, just kind of wiggle that, and then you have your TIE fighter looking ship, you have your rocket in the back, and then, this lifts up, and then your little fella in there flies that. So he can help defend the cargo ship as well, although it looks more like it's carrying a bunch of junk, right? And these are walkers. And if you'll remember way, way back when I did a Star Wars show on AT-ATs, I love the AT-AT. And so I built 2 different kinds of walkers here. And here's one. Now they have 6 legs. And this is the battery pack, but it is not functioning as a battery pack. It's really, I'm using it as a counterweight so it doesn't fall over. And then you have these, guns, lasers on there. And again, you have, you can use that, see that other piece that was on that ship over here with the guy waving at you. You can then put it on the walker and have another guy in there. And then you even have a tow cable up in the back so it can tow things or rescue someone in a cavern. And then I built another walker, and this has a two-seater walker, and then put the rocket on top of that, and that's how that one works. Now, let me show you what I did for my battery pack. All right. So I have an old Radio Shack battery pack. This holds 4 AA's inside, and it has an on-off switch. So let's see if I guess the polarity correct again. So I take these alligator clips, okay, and they are connected to the positive and negative wires on this battery pack. There's 4 of them, so that's 6 volts. And connect the red one there, and the black one there, and let's see if I'm right, if it's going to go forward when I turn it on. And there you go, and it's going forward. And then he ran into something, and it got all caught up. But anyway, let's make him walk a little bit further. Get this out of the way here. And here we go again. Oh, I think I lose connection. I'm going to make it so that I have a good connection. Uh-oh, what did I do? I think maybe when he ran into that, something went. I got caught up here. Let me investigate this and pause it. All right, we're ready to go. Okay, so that's how that walker works, and the other walker works the same way. And then I'm going to show you this motorized treaded vehicle. And so I unhook the alligator clips, and I can put it on. You see it has terminals here. Just clip that on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to custom make some clips that come on and off and stay on really well. I can do that. And then I will be much more satisfied with how this works. And there we go. And it just rolls along there. So you can see, one of the treads came off. But there. So you see, so that's the treads on that. And that'll just run along the ground. So in order to make it go in reverse, I would just switch the polarity on these. I would put the red on the top and the black one on the bottom. Turn it on again, and then it would go the other way. All right, and that's how that works. And so those are the only 3 motorized vehicles, but definitely runs much better on 6 volts AA's than it did on the C batteries. But it's not just the C batteries. I really think the hookup from these battery packs just doesn't work that well, because even when I put on 6 volts of C batteries, which should be a higher amperage, more power, they're bigger batteries, they still didn't run well. I tested everything individually. So this pack here definitely is a better solution. And what got me into digging this out, truly, was these Bud Lightyear toys that I just picked up really cheap. They were $5 a piece, but they reminded me of this set. So you can see these in the stores right now. And nobody really went to go see that Buzz Lightyear movie, I think. So these are if they're not already clearance. They will be shortly. The thing is always getting the clearance before they're gone. So what reminded me, why these toys reminded me of these is the way the little people look inside. So this, you push a button on the bottom and it unlatches. It's supposed to unlatch there. Yeah, it's a little difficult. Oh, there you just push that down. And then you have your giant robot. And similar movement, In fact, even looks similar, right? It's just big. So then that opens up like that. But take a look. Right? So very similar, similar hands, just bigger, right? And then you have your little Buzz Lightyears. This one opens too. There you go. See, you have another one in there. And they can all play together, I'm sure, these different sets. And then inside these this one is Buzz, for sure. And you have a little guy like that. Looks like a little Buzz. And it's got, the arms move individually. The legs move individually. The same as this old Bandai set, right? So, and they're pretty much the same scale. You could just think, maybe the robots are bigger. And every one of these ships has operational landing gear that goes up and down. So you can, and I imagine this is a peg that you probably connect it onto like an armature and have it, display it. But it didn't come with that. So I don't know if one of the other sets has that. But then I like this ship the best. I kind of like those wings in the back like that. But then you have another little fella in there that comes out. And I didn't see the movie, as I said, but I don't know if this is all just Buzz in different outfits or different guys that are helping him out. But this is a pretty neat ship too. Let's see. Yeah, well, they all have 4 rockets, but these are bigger. Maybe this one's faster. Let's see, this one has just 2 big ones, but it's a smaller ship, so might have greater inertia. And this just has 1 big one. And then you have a guy in green in there. This kind of looks like one of those Star Wars ships that was on Hoth that was circling around, the legs of the AT-ATs, and they were using the tow cable to kind of like trip them up, remember? So, yeah, I still like this ship the best. But anyway, so that is the Legions of Power. And you can go on eBay. I did, and people are still selling them, and they're often quite reasonable. They're a lot of fun. They're obviously durable. I've had them all these years, and just when you take things like this apart, you really just have to be careful and just kind of wiggle it, carefully so that you don't break the plastic. And these are the hardest thing. The hardest thing was getting these fenders off and you just kind of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you see when you pull it off, sometimes the whole thing comes off like that. But to see how this works, you see, so the motor is inside here, and then that turns that crankshaft, and that turns this here, this square peg, and then there's a gear up in here, and then that turns that, and then that moves your tread, and that's how that gear works. And when you have to line it up, to get the square peg just lined up right so that you can press it on. So, and you know what? You might be fascinated to see how the walker works, because this is quite a good walker. A lot of things that walk they fall over. These don't fall over if you get the weight balanced right. It doesn't fall over that easily, and certainly with the 6 volts was pretty quick. So what you have is you have the legs opposing each other. So when these are going back, this one's going forward, and then on the other side, it's doing the opposite. And then this comes out. This, again, you just do your wiggle. And then you see you have this spins. This wheel spins. And then this shaft goes up. And so that, this as this spins around, it'll go like that. But because it's on that sliding peg, it'll rotate in a circular motion. And then on the inside, this comes off again. You do your sideways wiggle, and then you see now you have your square peg there that connects to this crankshaft, and that's your motor is inside here, and that just presses on. You press that on. And then that. So, I think these are really fun toys. And I remember when I bought these, I was like, wow, they were on clearance, because I got it, like I said, probably in 91, and they came out in 85. So it had been sitting in some store all dusty in the box, and somewhere I still have the instructions. I was, just like, you know what? I'll buy 2 of these, the last 2, and I'll just play with them. And I love building ships and rockets and, space stations and vehicles. And I love walking vehicles. So it really was just a great toy and has lasted a long time. So that is your Legions of Power. And, I'm going to turn off the lights and show you how they glow. All right, so here you are, your glowing parts to your Legions of Power. And, you have your radar dishes and your half circles that glow. So there you are. Endless fun with the Legions of Power.